Desperate and surrounded, the alien queen begged for aid. Then help finally came. The sky above Velara was burning with streaks of red and gold as the alien warships hovered, their massive hulls blocking out the sun. From the tallest tower of her palace, the alien queen, Lyrantia, watched her city struggle against overwhelming forces. Her people, renowned across the galaxy for their intelligence and advanced technology, were being pushed back. The defensive drones that once patrolled the skies were being shredded one by one, and the barricades that protected the city streets were collapsing under relentless assaults. Lyrantia's heart weighed heavy. She had ruled Velara for decades, guiding her people through times of prosperity and hardship alike. She was a strategist, a leader whose mind was sharper than the edge of any blade. Yet, for the first time in her life, she felt the paralyzing weight of helplessness. The alien coalition attacking her world was unlike any foe she had faced. They were ruthless, united by a greed for her planet's rare resources, and driven by a determination to crush anyone who opposed them. She turned away from the window, walking through the palace corridors that had been carved from living crystal, glowing softly with the light of bioluminescent veins. Her advisors waited anxiously, bowing as she passed. "Your Majesty," one of them began, his voice trembling slightly. "We are losing ground. The eastern perimeter has fallen. Casualties are mounting every hour." Lyrantia stopped and looked at him. "And yet we still hold the heart of the city," she replied, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. "Our people are strong. Our technology is unmatched. We cannot allow panic to dictate our actions." But even as she spoke the words, she knew they were not enough. Her own advisors had begun murmuring about surrender, about seeking terms with the coalition. That was not who she was. Lyrantia had fought to defend Velara before, but this time, the threat was unlike anything she had ever encountered. They had encircled her, cut off communications, and controlled every strategic point outside the palace walls. In the depths of her mind, a plan began to form, a desperate one, but a plan nonetheless. She would reach beyond the galaxy, beyond the familiar alliances, to find aid. The risk was immense. No civilization had ever come to her people's aid on such short notice, and yet she could not stand by as her people were slaughtered. Carefully, she accessed the palace's hidden communication system, a device known only to her and her most trusted confidants. She crafted a message, brief but urgent, a call for help, sent into the depths of space where only the most capable would even notice it. She encoded it with layers of secrecy, knowing that interception by the enemy could lead to disaster. And then she launched it, her mind heavy with both hope and fear. Far across the galaxy, on a small, rugged frontier planet called Kalora, a human captain named Marcus Cade was monitoring signals from the far reaches of space. Marcus was not the kind to respond to every message. He had learned long ago that many distress signals were false, traps, or irrelevant to humanity. But something in this one caught his attention. It was faint, almost impossible to detect, yet it carried a tone of urgency, intelligence, and desperation unlike any standard transmission. He leaned back in his chair, studying the patterns of the message. There was something about it that drew him in, something almost instinctive. Marcus had faced countless battles, navigated treacherous political negotiations, and survived situations others would have called hopeless. And yet this call for aid felt different. It wasn't just a message. It was a cry for someone who could understand, for someone who could make a difference. Within hours, Marcus had assembled a small but skilled team. His crew was made up of engineers, pilots, and tacticians who shared one thing in common. They thrived where others faltered, able to think in ways that conventional armies could not. They were humans, underestimated by many across the galaxy for their numbers and technology, but that had always been humanity's strength. Marcus believed that adaptability and ingenuity could outweigh sheer force. Meanwhile, on Velara, the Queen continued to manage the defense of her city. She moved through the streets, calming citizens, directing defensive operations, and making strategic decisions at every turn. She had always been proud of her people, and today their courage was palpable. They fought with precision, bravery, and a sense of unity that was unmatched. But still, the losses were mounting. Every moment the humans took to arrive could mean more lives lost. The day the human fleet arrived, the skies were filled with streaks of light and distant hums of engines. Lyrantia's advisors whispered in astonishment as small, sleek human ships emerged from the void. There was no grandeur, no overwhelming firepower, but something in the humans' approach felt different. They were precise, purposeful, and unafraid. Marcus piloted the lead ship personally, scanning the battlefield with sharp, calculating eyes. He quickly assessed the situation. The enemy warships patrolled methodically, expecting an easy conquest, while the human fleet operated with nimble unpredictability. Marcus knew they would have to act quickly. Conventional methods would fail against such a large, coordinated enemy. The Queen observed cautiously from her command tower. She had never trusted outsiders lightly, and she had seen many species make promises they could not keep. Yet, as she watched the humans begin to coordinate with her remaining forces, she felt a flicker of hope. These humans, though few in number, moved with confidence and creativity. They adapted to the battlefield as if it were a living organism, responding to threats before her own sensors could detect them. Within hours, the humans had begun to make a difference. They used small, nimble drones to disable enemy weapons, deployed decoys to confuse the attackers, and executed maneuvers that drew the enemy away from critical points in the city. Lyrantia's own commanders were astonished by the humans' ingenuity. They had relied on brute force for generations, but these humans thought differently. They anticipated, they adapted, and they took risks that would have seemed reckless to anyone else. The Queen could not help but feel both admiration and unease. These humans were not only fighting alongside her, they were changing the rules of engagement entirely. And while she marveled at their courage, she also recognized the danger. One misstep could mean the annihilation of both her people and the human fleet. Every decision was a delicate balance, every moment charged with potential disaster. As the battle continued, Lyrantia began to understand something profound. It was not just the humans' skill that impressed her, but their spirit. They were willing to face impossible odds, not for glory or conquest, but because it was right. They valued life, ingenuity, and loyalty in ways that transcended conventional power. For the first time, she realized that these beings, small and underestimated in the galactic hierarchy, might possess a strength far greater than she had imagined. By nightfall, the human fleet had managed to push back a significant portion of the enemy forces. Fires still burned in parts of the city, and the battle was far from over, but the tide had shifted. Citizens dared to emerge from hiding, seeing the humans fight with an almost reckless bravery. Soldiers who had been on the brink of despair found renewed courage, rallying around both their queen and these unexpected allies. Lyrantia stood atop her palace once more, looking out at the city she had sworn to protect. For the first time in many days, she allowed herself a moment of cautious hope. Help had arrived when she had thought none would come, and though she did not yet fully trust the humans, she understood that in their presence her people had a chance. In the quiet of the command tower, Marcus reviewed the incoming reports. His crew moved with precision, repairing damaged ships, tending to wounded, and preparing for the next phase of engagement. They were humans, yes, but they carried something far more valuable than technology or numbers. They carried hope, courage, and the ability to turn desperation into opportunity. As the night stretched over Velara, the Queen and the human captain shared a brief moment of understanding. Neither needed to speak. The battle was far from over, and challenges awaited them both. But in that instant, a bond was forged, one that would change the course of history. Two civilizations, different in every way, had found a common purpose: survival, courage, and the refusal to surrender to impossible odds. And so, under the twin moons of Velara, the first steps of an alliance were taken. Desperate and surrounded, the alien queen had sent out a call for aid. And help had finally arrived, not in the overwhelming force she had once imagined, but in the ingenuity, bravery, and unbreakable spirit of humanity. The sun rose over the shattered skyline of Velara, casting long shadows across streets that were once bustling with life. Smoke still curled from collapsed buildings, and the air was thick with dust and the acrid scent of burned metals. Yet amidst the destruction there was movement, determination, and a glimmer of hope. The humans had proven themselves capable allies, and the Queen, Lyrantia, could no longer dismiss their value. Marcus Cade gathered his crew in the central courtyard of the palace, a space that had once been a garden of living crystal flowers, now scarred by battle. He traced his finger across the holographic map projected in front of him. Enemy forces had regrouped, holding key points in the city and controlling several orbital platforms above. Victory would not come easily, but the humans had a strategy that could turn the tide. "Listen carefully," Marcus said, his voice steady but urgent. "They expect conventional attacks. They expect brute force. We will give them neither. We will divide their attention, hit where they are weakest, and force them to scatter. Timing is everything. Everyone must be ready to adapt." His crew nodded, eyes shining with determination. Humans had always been underestimated in galactic conflicts. Large empires counted their numbers, their fleets, their weapons. Few imagined that a small, adaptable force could outthink them. Marcus smiled faintly, knowing that was exactly their advantage. Meanwhile, the Queen observed from above, pacing the balcony of her tower. She had spent hours considering the humans' plan. Her advisors warned her again, relying on outsiders was dangerous. But she had already seen what they could do. Where her own forces had relied on rules and routines, the humans had embraced unpredictability. They could see opportunities where she had only seen obstacles. "Perhaps I misjudged them," she murmured to herself, a hint of awe in her voice. She remembered the first day they had arrived, the way Marcus had assessed the battlefield with calm eyes, understanding the enemy's weaknesses immediately. That intuition, combined with his courage, had begun to change the course of the siege. As Marcus' team prepared, the Queen's forces worked to repair defenses. Engineers patched up the remaining energy shields, while soldiers reinforced barricades. Citizens who had survived the initial attacks were brought in to provide assistance, carrying supplies, tending to the wounded, and even participating in small defensive roles. Lyrantia watched them with pride. Her people were strong, but now they were learning a new kind of strength, the human strength of ingenuity and courage. The humans moved in coordinated units, small squads that darted through the city streets with precision. Drones were deployed to scout ahead, creating illusions and drawing enemy fire away from key positions. The Queen noted how the humans communicated silently, using subtle signals and gestures that kept them in perfect synchronization. It was an art form in itself, one that even her trained officers could scarcely follow. Marcus led a squad through a narrow passageway, avoiding debris and collapsed structures. They paused at a junction, scanning for patrols. A group of enemy soldiers was approaching, heavily armed and confident in their numbers. Marcus signaled, and two of his team released small, holographic decoys that mimicked their movements. The enemy soldiers, confused, fired at the illusions, wasting precious time and ammunition. The humans moved through the shadows, reaching their target without a single casualty. Back at the palace, the Queen studied the progress reports. She had begun to feel a strange respect for Marcus, a human who had shown her courage, intelligence, and compassion in equal measure. He was not seeking glory or power. He was focused entirely on saving lives. That perspective, so different from the rigid command structures of her own military, was something she had never considered. The humans' efforts were not without risk. Several squads were forced into dangerous confrontations, engaging enemy units that outnumbered them. Yet every time they found a way to turn the odds in their favor. Marcus' strategies relied not on overwhelming firepower, but on understanding the enemy's mindset, predicting their movements, and exploiting weaknesses. It was a style of warfare unfamiliar to the Queen's commanders, and it fascinated her. During one particularly tense moment, a group of enemy soldiers attempted to breach a critical energy hub in the city. If they succeeded, the palace's shields would collapse, leaving the Queen and her people vulnerable. Marcus personally led a counterstrike, moving swiftly through narrow alleys and using the environment to his advantage. His team disabled the intruders' weapons and captured them without unnecessary loss. The Queen observed this action with growing admiration. Marcus' willingness to risk himself alongside his team was unlike anything she had seen in her own generals. He did not command from safety. He acted with the people, shared their dangers, and led through example. It was a lesson she had never anticipated needing to learn from a species so different from her own. As night fell over Velara, the human forces had achieved something remarkable. They had managed to regain control of key districts, forcing the enemy to retreat into defensive positions. Fires still burned in parts of the city, but the momentum had shifted. The citizens, inspired by the bravery of both their queen and the humans, began to emerge from hiding, assisting in repairs, and even taking up arms to defend their homes. The queen moved through the streets herself, walking among her people. She offered words of encouragement, reassured the fearful, and inspired the weary. But she also observed the humans in action, noting how they coordinated with her forces seamlessly, adapting to challenges in real time. She realized that this collaboration could be more than temporary assistance. It could mark the beginning of a lasting alliance between her people and humanity. In a quieter moment, Marcus and Lyrantia met in the palace's command center. Holographic maps projected above the table, showing the positions of enemy forces, damaged areas, and ongoing operations. "You are unlike anyone I have ever seen," the queen said, her voice measured but filled with curiosity. "You think differently, act differently, and yet your methods are effective," Marcus nodded. "We've had to survive where others would have failed. Humans are small compared to most galactic empires, but we adapt. We learn quickly. And when we fight with purpose, not just orders." The queen considered his words. "Purpose, yes, I see it in your people and your actions. It is inspiring." She paused, her eyes meeting his. "Perhaps there is more to humanity than I understood." Marcus smiled faintly. "You'll find out quickly. We're here to help, but we're not miracle workers. We need your support too. Your people's technology, your knowledge of this city, your leadership, it all matters. Together we have a chance." For the first time since the siege began, the queen felt a sense of true partnership. She had called for aid out of desperation, but what she received was something greater. Allies who could teach her new ways to protect her people, allies who could challenge her assumptions, and allies who could fight beside her with courage and ingenuity. The following days were a blur of coordinated operations. Humans and Valarans moved through the city together, reclaiming territory one sector at a time. Drones repaired infrastructure, while squads cleared debris and restored communication links. Civilians assisted in efforts wherever they could, inspired by the teamwork displayed before them. Marcus' presence was not just strategic, it was moral. He encouraged bravery, recognized ingenuity, and never hesitated to put himself in harm's way alongside his team. The queen watched him interact with her people, listening as he offered guidance and reassurance. It was not leadership through command alone. It was leadership through example, and it left a profound impression on her. Even the enemy, powerful and ruthless as they were, began to show signs of strain. Their forces were scattered, their morale weakened by the unexpected resilience and creativity of the humans. For the first time, they hesitated, unsure how to respond to tactics they had never encountered. Marcus exploited this hesitation, pushing small victories that compounded into strategic advantages. Lyrantia realized that this human approach, improvisation, adaptability, courage, and empathy, was a force unlike any she had faced in her long life. It was not about raw power alone. It was about understanding, responding, and acting decisively when others hesitated. Her own people began to adopt some of these strategies, learning from the humans' example. By the time the second night fell, the city's defenses had stabilized. Fires were brought under control, key districts had been reclaimed, and the morale of the citizens was stronger than it had been before the siege. The queen walked through the streets again, observing the faces of her people. Hope was returning, not just because of survival, but because they had witnessed something extraordinary. Humans who fought not out of fear, not out of obligation, but out of the belief that they could make a difference. In the quiet of her chambers, Lyrantia reflected on the events of the past days. She had sent out a desperate call for aid, fearing the worst. Yet what arrived had changed everything. Not only had her people gained reinforcements, but she had gained insight into a new kind of strength. Humanity, she realized, possessed a power that extended beyond technology and numbers: courage, intelligence, and the ability to inspire. Marcus, too, took a moment to review the progress. He knew the battle was far from over. The enemy had resources, technology, and determination. Yet he also knew that the combination of human ingenuity and the Queen's leadership could tip the scales. They had won small victories, yes, but more importantly, they had built trust, unity, and hope. Those were weapons that no fleet of warships could destroy. As the stars of Valara twinkled above, Lyrantia and Marcus shared a silent understanding. The days ahead would be challenging, filled with danger, strategy, and uncertainty. But together, They had begun a partnership that could change the course of history. Humanity had arrived not as saviors to be worshipped, but as allies to be respected. And in that truth lay the seed of victory, a hope that no force in the galaxy could easily extinguish. The days following the initial human intervention were filled with cautious optimism, but Lyrantia knew the enemy would not remain passive for long. The alien coalition had suffered unexpected setbacks, and any commander worth their salt would regroup and strike with renewed ferocity. Intelligence reports confirmed her suspicions. The enemy was consolidating forces at multiple points around the city, preparing for a counteroffensive that could crush the reclaimed districts. Marcus Cade gathered his team in the palace command center, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of holographic maps. They had learned the layout of Velara quickly, integrating human tactical ingenuity with the planet's advanced technology. Yet Marcus knew that the enemy's strength lay not just in their weapons, but in their ability to think predictably. If the humans and Valarans acted as expected, defeat would follow. The key was unpredictability. "Tomorrow we hit them where they least expect it," Marcus said, pointing to a cluster of enemy positions near the central communication hub. "They think they control the city. They think they know our moves. They don't. We'll use that to our advantage." His team listened intently. They had learned to trust Marcus' judgment through action, seeing him adapt and innovate in ways that had saved countless lives. The Valarans, initially skeptical of human methods, were beginning to understand the value of flexibility, improvisation, and boldness in battle. The Queen, observing quietly, felt a mixture of hope and apprehension. Marcus' strategies were daring, sometimes bordering on reckless, but they worked. She had seen squads navigate enemy lines with minimal losses, turning hopeless situations into victories. Yet she also knew that one miscalculation could be catastrophic. Her people had already endured immense losses, and another failure could shatter their morale completely. The following morning, Marcus led a small strike team toward the enemy's communication hub. The streets were eerily quiet, punctuated only by the distant hum of drones and the occasional blast from sporadic skirmishes. Marcus signaled his team forward, and they moved like shadows, using the environment to their advantage. Small decoys and holographic projections misled enemy patrols, allowing the humans to approach undetected. From the palace balcony, the Queen watched the operation unfold. She had sent her own elite forces alongside Marcus' team, not as commanders, but as learners, observing human tactics in action. It was a rare sight. Valaran warriors, disciplined and precise, following instructions from humans who had never before fought in their world. Yet the results spoke for themselves. The synergy between the two species was astonishing, a combination of strategy, courage, and creativity that defied conventional expectations. The strike team reached the communication hub, a towering structure bristling with sensors and defensive systems. Marcus assessed the layout swiftly. "We go in from the west. Use the maintenance tunnels, they're less guarded. Disable the control nodes, then set the feedback pulse to disrupt their communications across the city." The team nodded, moving with practiced efficiency. The maintenance tunnels were narrow and dark, forcing them to rely on intuition and coordinated signals. Enemy patrols passed above them, unaware of the humans slipping silently beneath. Marcus' mind raced, anticipating every possible complication, preparing contingencies for every likely scenario. As they emerged inside the hub, enemy guards spotted them. A brief firefight erupted, but the humans' speed and precision overwhelmed the surprised soldiers. Within minutes, Marcus' team had reached the control nodes. Engineers worked quickly, interfacing with alien technology they barely understood, while Marcus covered their flank. Sparks flew as circuits were manipulated, systems overloaded, and security protocols bypassed. Back at the palace, the Queen watched as the hub's defenses flickered and went dark. She felt a surge of pride and relief. Humanity had proven again that courage and intelligence could overcome even the most advanced technology. Her own forces moved in to secure the hub, ensuring that the human intervention had a lasting effect. Yet victory was only temporary. Reports indicated that the enemy was mobilizing a second wave, this one larger and more organized. The Queen realized that the battle was far from over. She would have to make a difficult choice: Continue defending piecemeal, risking more lives, or take the fight directly to the enemy before they could regroup fully. Marcus approached her, his face serious. Your Majesty, we've delayed them, disrupted their communications, and regained control of critical sectors. But they're preparing something larger. If we wait, they'll strike with everything they have. I propose a counterattack, swift, targeted, and coordinated with your forces. Lyrantia considered his words carefully. Her advisors urged caution, warning of the dangers in confronting the enemy head-on. But she remembered the courage she had witnessed, the bravery of humans who risked everything for others, the determination of her own people inspired by their presence. Perhaps the answer lay not in fear, but in bold action. Very well, she said, her voice steady. We will strike together, but understand this, failure is not an option. Our people's lives, our city, and our future depend on it. Marcus nodded. Understood, we won't fail. The following hours were a blur of preparation. Humans and Valarans coordinated movements, shared intelligence, and synchronized strategies. Citizens were evacuated from high-risk areas, and supply lines were reinforced. Every squad knew its role, every move was calculated, yet flexibility remained a priority. The enemy would expect predictability. They would not anticipate the ingenuity humans brought to the battlefield. As night fell, the counterattack began. Marcus led a squad through a series of narrow corridors and elevated walkways, moving unseen while other teams engaged enemy forces in direct confrontation to draw attention away. Explosions and bursts of energy lit the city like fireworks, each one signaling progress, disruption, and confusion among enemy ranks. The Queen moved among her people, coordinating reinforcements and tending to wounded soldiers. She could feel the momentum shifting, a subtle but undeniable change in the tide of battle. Where despair had reigned, hope now flickered brightly. Humans and Valarans fought side by side, adapting, learning, and overcoming challenges that had once seemed insurmountable. During the chaos, Marcus' squad reached the enemy's central command outpost. They encountered heavy resistance, yet his team's training, ingenuity, and cohesion allowed them to prevail. Engineers disabled security systems and communication arrays, sending a cascading failure through enemy lines. The outpost's sudden silence threw the coalition forces into disarray, and Marcus seized the opportunity to secure the area and relay coordinates for the Queen's reinforcements. The Queen watched the operation with growing respect. Marcus and his team had not only achieved their objective, but had done so in a way that minimized casualties and preserved critical resources. It was a style of warfare she had never seen before, one that combined courage, intelligence, and compassion in equal measure. As the night stretched on, the humans' unconventional tactics continued to frustrate the enemy. They used misdirection, environmental advantages, and precise strikes to disrupt supply lines and isolate key units. The Queen's forces adapted, learning quickly from human methods, and the city's defenses grew stronger with every engagement. Amidst the battle, a moment of tension arose when a secondary enemy force attempted to flank Marcus' team. They were outnumbered, and the situation could have turned disastrous. Yet Marcus remained calm, analyzing the environment and the enemy's movements. With careful coordination, he led his team in a series of maneuvers that trapped the flanking force, turning a potential defeat into another strategic advantage. Lyrantia could not contain her admiration. These humans, so small in number, had the ability to alter the course of a battle with intelligence, courage, and adaptability. She realized that this partnership was not just a temporary alliance. It was a demonstration of humanity's potential, a force that could shape the destiny of her people in ways she had never imagined. By dawn, the enemy had been pushed back from critical sectors of the city. Fires still smoldered, but the coalition's forces were fragmented and demoralized. Citizens emerged from hiding, aiding in repairs and supporting remaining defense units. The city had endured, not just because of technology, but because of the ingenuity, courage, and unity demonstrated by humans and Valarans working together. The Queen stood on her palace balcony, looking out over the city she had fought so hard to protect. Marcus approached, his expression calm but determined. "You've done more than save the city," she said. "You've shown my people a new way to fight, a new way to survive. I am grateful." Marcus shook his head. "We've only started. The enemy isn't finished, and neither are we." But today, we've proven something important, that courage, intelligence, and cooperation can overcome even the most overwhelming odds. The Queen nodded, a spark of hope shining in her eyes. For the first time in days, she felt confident not only in the survival of her city, but in the potential of humanity as a partner, ally, and friend. The days ahead would be difficult, but together, they had the chance to turn desperation into triumph. As the sun rose fully over Velara, painting the city in shades of gold and red, the Queen and the human captain shared a silent understanding. The battle was far from over, but the first turning point had been achieved. Humanity, underestimated for so long, had begun to reveal the depth of its strength, a strength rooted not in numbers or weapons alone, but in courage, intelligence, and the unyielding will to protect those who could not protect themselves. And so, with the city partially reclaimed and hope rekindled, the stage was set for the next phase of the struggle, a confrontation that would test the limits of both human ingenuity and Valeran resolve. Marcus and Lyrantia knew that their partnership had only begun, but it had already changed the course of history. Together, they would face whatever challenges came next, and in doing so, demonstrate the true power of unity between worlds. The morning sun cast a pale glow over Velara, illuminating a city that bore the scars of relentless battle. Buildings still smoldered from explosions, streets were riddled with craters, and the air carried the sharp tang of ozone from energy weapons. Yet amidst the destruction, the city pulsed with life and resilience. The Queen, Lyrantia, stood on her palace balcony, watching the coordinated movements of her people and the human forces. She had begun to trust in their combined efforts, but she knew the most dangerous moments were yet to come. Marcus Cade surveyed the battlefield with keen eyes, scanning for enemy movements and potential traps. The coalition, despite their setbacks, had regrouped and were preparing a massive assault. They had brought reinforcements from nearby systems, their ships bristling with weaponry, their ground forces trained to overwhelm by sheer numbers. Marcus knew that a direct confrontation would be deadly, but retreat was not an option. Every citizen, every soldier, every life in Velara depended on their ability to hold the line. "Your Majesty," Marcus said, approaching Lyrantia, "they're coordinating a full-scale attack. I estimate it will hit here, here, and here simultaneously." He indicated multiple points on the holographic map. "If we do not act decisively, the city will fall." Lyrantia nodded, her mind calculating every possible outcome. Her advisors murmured cautions, urging defensive strategies, but she felt a stirring of confidence. Humanity had brought a new perspective, showing her ways to fight that were previously unimaginable. She could not ignore the courage and intelligence she had witnessed. "Then we will meet them head-on," she said, her voice firm. "But we strike as one, humans and Valarans together. Every life counts. Every decision must be precise." The humans and Valaran forces began a meticulous preparation. Barricades were reinforced, drones positioned for reconnaissance, and civilians evacuated to secure zones. Marcus coordinated with both human and Valaran commanders, ensuring everyone understood the strategy, a combination of diversion, precision strikes, and adaptive defense. The enemy expected a predictable approach. They would not anticipate the ingenuity that Marcus and his team brought. As night fell, the enemy launched their assault. Massive warships hovered above the city, firing energy beams that lit the sky like molten lightning. Ground forces advanced with disciplined precision, attempting to break through the defensive lines. The Queen, her people, and the human squads were ready. Marcus led a team into the heart of the city, using narrow alleys and underground passages to flank enemy positions. Explosions and blasts rocked the streets, but the humans moved with unparalleled coordination. Holographic decoys and stealth drones created confusion among the enemy ranks, turning potential disasters into opportunities. The Queen's forces, inspired by their courage, pushed forward with renewed determination. Amid the chaos, Lyrantia herself led a squad to defend a critical energy relay. Enemy forces attempted to breach the area, and the battle became fierce. The Queen fought alongside her soldiers, demonstrating precision and courage that inspired everyone around her. Yet she could not ignore the humans' presence, particularly Marcus, whose team was achieving objectives she had once thought impossible. The humans' methods were unlike anything the Valarans had experienced. They relied on quick thinking, improvisation, and anticipation of the enemy's tactics. When an enemy squad attempted to flank Marcus' team, he quickly adapted, using the environment to trap the attackers. Small victories like these compounded, shifting momentum in favor of the defenders. Despite their progress, the battle took its toll. Buildings collapsed, energy shields faltered, and casualties mounted. Yet the people of Velara fought with determination, refusing to yield even when hope seemed fragile. Citizens assisted in moving supplies, tending to the wounded, and reinforcing barricades. The queen moved among them, offering words of encouragement, her presence a beacon of resolve. Marcus coordinated a daring strike on the enemy's central command outpost. The humans infiltrated the heavily guarded structure, disabling key systems and causing widespread disruption in enemy communications. This action sent ripples of confusion through the coalition forces, preventing coordinated attacks and buying precious time for the defenders. The queen observed the operation, realizing that human ingenuity and courage were changing the course of the battle in ways her own forces could not have achieved alone. The enemy, frustrated by their inability to dominate, escalated their attack. A massive squadron of elite soldiers attempted a direct assault on the palace itself. The queen recognized the critical moment. If the palace fell, the city's morale and command structure would collapse. She made a decisive choice to lead a counteroffensive, rallying both humans and Valarans. Marcus and his team moved swiftly to flank the incoming attackers. Using a combination of stealth, precise strikes, and environmental advantages, they slowed the advance and forced the enemy into vulnerable positions. The queen's forces struck simultaneously, catching the elite soldiers off guard. The clash was intense, each side fighting with determination, but the synergy between humans and Valarans turned the tide. In the heat of battle, a massive explosion threatened to collapse part of the palace. Marcus acted immediately, directing his team to stabilize the structure while others evacuated trapped civilians. The queen, witnessing their bravery, realized that the humans' value went beyond tactics. They embodied a courage and commitment to others that was rare in the galaxy. As the hours passed, the coalition's forces began to falter. Their coordination broke down under the relentless, unpredictable pressure from the defenders. Strategic points were reclaimed, supply lines disrupted, and morale crumbled. The queen and Marcus watched as the enemy began to retreat, their massive fleet pulling back to avoid further losses. The city, though battered, had survived. Citizens emerged from hiding, tending to the wounded and helping rebuild. Fires were extinguished and critical systems restored. The queen moved among her people, acknowledging their courage and resilience. She also made a point to recognize the humans, whose ingenuity and bravery had played a decisive role in saving lives and turning the tide of battle. Marcus met the queen in the palace's command center, both weary but resolute. "We've pushed them back," he said. "But this is only the beginning. They'll regroup and they'll come again," Lyrantia nodded. "I understand, but today we have shown what can be achieved when courage, intelligence, and cooperation unite. Humanity has proven its worth not through numbers but through determination and heart." Marcus smiled faintly. "Your people fought brilliantly too. Humans alone could not have done this. But together we've created something powerful. That's the lesson the enemy will take away." The queen reflected on his words, realizing that the bond forged in battle was more than strategic. It was a connection built on trust, respect, and shared purpose. The humans had arrived as allies, but they had become something greater, partners in a struggle for survival, courage, and the future of a world. Over the following days, Velara began to recover. Structures were repaired, systems restored, and defenses strengthened. Citizens assisted in every way they could, inspired by the collaboration they had witnessed. The humans continued to provide guidance, training, and leadership in coordination with Valaran forces. Together, they had created a resilient, adaptable defense that the enemy could no longer underestimate. The queen held a council with her advisors and Marcus. "We have survived this assault," she said. "But the enemy is persistent. We must be ready for whatever comes next. And we must continue to learn from our allies." Marcus nodded. "Agreed. Preparation, adaptation, and courage will be key. But we've already proven that even in the darkest moments, strategy and determination can turn the tide." Humanity may be underestimated across the galaxy, but here we've shown our value. The Queen felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had called for aid out of desperation, fearing the worst. What she received had exceeded her expectations. Humanity had not only brought skill and strategy, but also the spirit of hope and resilience that had inspired her people. Together, they had survived a battle that seemed impossible. As night fell over the city, the Queen and Marcus stood on the palace balcony, watching the stars glinting above. The city was alive with activity, citizens moving through the streets, rebuilding and preparing for the challenges that lay ahead. The alliance forged in battle had proven its worth, but both knew that the final test was still to come. In that moment, Lyrantia understood something profound. Strength was not measured by technology alone, nor by the size of armies. True strength came from courage, ingenuity, adaptability, and the willingness to fight for others. Humans, underestimated for so long, had embodied these qualities in every action. They had arrived in her time of desperation, and through their efforts, hope had been restored. Marcus, looking at the city and the people he had come to protect, felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He knew the enemy would return, that challenges would continue, and that victories would be hard-won. But he also knew that humanity, when united with those who shared their values, could achieve what others deemed impossible. The night passed with a fragile calm. Preparations continued, defenses were reinforced, and the Queen and Marcus strategized for the battles ahead. Their partnership had grown beyond necessity. It had become a symbol of unity, courage, and determination that could inspire not just Velera, but the galaxy itself. The city had survived, but the war was far from over. And as the first light of dawn touched the rooftops, both humans and Valerans understood that the coming days would test every ounce of their skill, resolve, and courage. Yet together, they were ready. Together, they had begun to rewrite the rules of survival and demonstrate the true power of unity across worlds. The city of Velera stood on the brink of dawn, its battered towers glowing in the soft light of the rising sun. Fires had been mostly extinguished, streets were slowly cleared of debris, and the citizens moved with a renewed sense of purpose. But the battle was not yet over. Intelligence reports indicated that the enemy, humiliated by their recent defeats, was preparing a final, desperate assault, a coordinated strike that could overwhelm even the combined forces of Valerans and humans. Lyrantia, the alien queen, stood on her palace balcony, overlooking the city she had fought so hard to protect. Her expression was calm, but her mind was alert, calculating every possible outcome. She had witnessed courage and ingenuity in ways she had never imagined. Humans, led by Marcus Cade, had transformed despair into hope. They had shown her people a new way to fight, a new way to survive. And now, she knew, the final challenge would test every ounce of skill, strategy, and courage that they possessed. Marcus Cade walked beside her, his eyes scanning the horizon for signs of movement. He had reviewed every report, anticipated every maneuver, and developed a plan to meet the enemy head-on. But even he knew that the upcoming battle would push both humans and Valerans to their limits. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice steady, "they're coming. This will be the decisive moment. We must act quickly, decisively, and together. One mistake and the city could fall." Lyrantia nodded. "Then we shall act together. Today we fight not just for survival, but to show that courage, intelligence, and unity can overcome even the greatest odds. My people are ready. Your people are ready. Let this be our stand." Preparations were swift and meticulous. Citizens were moved to safe zones, medical units prepared for the wounded, and defense squads reinforced every strategic point. The humans trained the Valeran forces in advanced maneuvers, combining speed, precision, and adaptability with the alien technology that had once been used in conventional warfare. Drones and reconnaissance units were deployed to monitor enemy movements, while Marcus' team coordinated with elite Valeran warriors to plan diversionary strikes. As the enemy fleet approached, the city braced for impact. Massive ships hovered above, their hulls bristling with weapons, while ground forces advanced in disciplined formations. Yet the defenders were ready, their determination as palpable as the energy that flowed through the city's crystalline structures. The Queen, flanked by Marcus, took a deep breath. She had faced despair before, but never had she felt the combination of hope, courage, and unity that surged through her people now. The battle began with a thunderous roar. Energy beams streaked across the sky, colliding with shields that glowed with defiance. Explosions rocked the streets, sending shockwaves through buildings and scattering enemy forces. Marcus led a squad through a series of underground passages, emerging behind enemy lines to disable supply units and communication nodes. Small, precise strikes created confusion, forcing the enemy to divide their attention and resources. The Queen moved among her forces, directing reinforcements, inspiring courage, and coordinating counterattacks. Her presence was a beacon, rallying soldiers who might have otherwise faltered under the enemy's relentless assault. She watched as humans and Valarans fought side by side, their combined ingenuity and courage transforming the city into a battlefield of strategy, precision, and determination. Enemy forces attempted to breach the palace defenses. Marcus quickly assessed the situation, deploying a combination of decoys, drones, and environmental traps to slow their advance. Valaran warriors, inspired by his leadership, executed flanking maneuvers that cut enemy units off from reinforcements. Explosions lit the night sky as energy weapons clashed, each side testing the other's resolve. Amidst the chaos, a massive enemy squad attempted to take the central energy hub, a key target whose control could determine the battle's outcome. The Queen, understanding the stakes, led a counterforce personally. Humans and Valarans moved as one, striking with precision and strategy. Marcus coordinated from the flank, guiding units, redirecting attacks, and ensuring the hub remained secure. The clash at the energy hub became the turning point of the battle. Enemy forces, confident in their strength, were met with unexpected tactics. Humans used speed and adaptability to exploit gaps in enemy formations, while Valaran warriors applied their technology with renewed insight, learned from observing human ingenuity. Together, they created a force that the enemy could not predict or counter. As the hours passed, enemy morale began to waver. Their coordinated assault faltered under the relentless pressure of combined human and Valaran forces. Strategic positions were reclaimed, supply lines disrupted, and communication channels severed. The city's defenders, bolstered by courage and unity, pressed forward, taking ground that had seemed lost. During a critical moment, a section of the enemy fleet attempted a surprise aerial strike on the palace. Marcus led a squad of human pilots in a daring maneuver, intercepting the attackers with agility and precision. Using a combination of stealth technology and tactical coordination, they neutralized the threat, protecting the palace and the Queen. The Valaran aerial units, guided by human strategy, executed synchronized attacks that further destabilized enemy formations. The Queen observed the unfolding events, her respect for humans growing with every maneuver. Their courage, intelligence, and adaptability were unmatched, and their willingness to fight alongside her people had inspired a level of resilience she had never seen before. She realized that the humans had not only saved her city, but had also transformed her understanding of strength and leadership. By dawn, the enemy's forces were in full retreat. Their coordinated assault had been broken, their morale shattered, and their fleet damaged beyond immediate repair. The city, though scarred, had survived. Citizens emerged from shelters, tending to the wounded, assisting in repairs, and celebrating a victory that had seemed impossible just days before. Lyrantia moved through the streets, acknowledging the bravery and determination of her people. Soldiers, civilians, and humans alike had proven that courage and unity could overcome overwhelming odds. The Queen felt a profound sense of gratitude and respect for the humans, particularly Marcus, whose leadership had been instrumental in achieving this decisive victory. Marcus met the Queen at the central plaza, both exhausted but resolute. "We did it," he said simply. "The city is safe. Your people fought brilliantly, and together we've shown the enemy that Valara will not fall." The Queen nodded, her eyes shining with emotion. "You have done more than save the city, Marcus. You have shown my people a new way to fight, a new way to survive, and a new way to hope. Humanity is not only capable, it is remarkable." Marcus smiled, but his expression was serious. "We've only demonstrated what's possible when courage, intelligence, and cooperation are combined. The galaxy may underestimate humanity, but here, we've proven our value. Together, we can face anything." The citizens of Valara gathered in the central plaza, cheering, celebrating, and expressing gratitude for the humans who had come to their aid. The queen raised her voice, addressing the crowd. Today we have survived, not through power alone, but through courage, wisdom, and unity. These humans came when we were desperate, and they fought with us not for themselves, but for all of Velera. Let this victory remind us that hope, ingenuity, and cooperation are the true strength of any civilization. Marcus and his team were hailed as heroes, but they remained humble, emphasizing the contributions of the queen and her people. The battle had been won together, and both humans and Valerans understood that their alliance had become something deeper than strategy. It had become a bond of trust, respect, and shared purpose. In the following days, the city began the long process of recovery. Structures were repaired, defenses reinforced, and citizens returned to daily life. The Queen implemented reforms inspired by human strategies, emphasizing flexibility, innovation, and the value of courage and collaboration. The humans assisted in training programs, sharing knowledge and strategies that would prepare Velara for any future threats. The enemy, having suffered a decisive defeat, retreated to regroup in distant systems. Their arrogance and underestimation of both humans and Valerans had cost them dearly. The victory at Velara became a testament to the power of determination, intelligence, and the ability to adapt in the face of overwhelming odds. In a quiet moment, the Queen and Marcus walked through the palace gardens, now partially restored. The city had survived, hope had been restored, and a bond between worlds had been forged. "You have changed my perspective, Marcus," the Queen said softly. "I called for aid out of desperation, but what arrived was far greater. Humanity has shown that courage, intelligence, and heart can surpass any challenge." Marcus nodded. "And your people have shown me that determination, unity, and resilience can turn even the direst situations into victories. Together, we've achieved something extraordinary. This is only the beginning of what our civilizations can accomplish together." The Queen smiled, her gaze thoughtful. "Perhaps the galaxy will finally understand what I have learned. That strength is not measured solely by technology or numbers, but by courage, intelligence, and the will to protect others. Humanity embodies these qualities in ways that are rare and profound. I am grateful." Marcus looked out over the city, watching citizens rebuild, laugh, and reclaim their lives. "They should be proud," he said. "Not just for surviving, but for showing that unity and courage can overcome anything. That's the true power of a people who refuse to give up." As the twin moons rose over Velara, casting their soft glow over the recovering city, the Queen and Marcus stood together, a symbol of unity between worlds. The enemy had been defeated, the city preserved, and hope rekindled. The partnership forged in desperation had transformed into a lasting alliance, one that would influence the future of the galaxy. In that moment, Lyrantia understood that her call for aid had not only saved her people, but had revealed the true potential of humanity. Marcus and his team had arrived when all seemed lost, demonstrating that courage, intelligence, and determination could change the course of history. Her people had learned a new way to fight, a new way to hope, and a new way to survive. And Marcus knew, as he watched the Queen address her people, that the story of Velara would be remembered not just for the battle, but for the unity, courage, and ingenuity that had turned desperation into triumph. Humanity had proven its worth, not through conquest, but through heart, mind, and action. The galaxy would never underestimate them again. With the city safe, the enemy repelled, and hope restored, Velara entered a new era. One where humans and Valerans stood together, ready to face any challenge, to defend life, and to show that even in the darkest times, courage and unity could prevail. The alien queen had called for aid, and when help arrived, it came not only with power but with wisdom, courage, and a spirit that would inspire generations to come. The story of Velara became a legend, a testament to the true power of unity and determination. It was a story of hope, courage, and the enduring strength of humanity, remembered long after the battle had ended, whispered in every corner of the city, and celebrated across the galaxy.